It's funny how when we talk about a physical injury, there's this expectation of just absolute precision.
Oh, completely.
Like you break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor points at the screen and says, "Yep, there it is. That's the break."
Right. It's visible, it's undeniable, and it demands immediate care. I
Yeah.
mean, no one really argues with an X-ray.
Nobody looks at a snapped radius and tells you you're just, being dramatic.
Right.
But then you step into the world of emotional pain, and suddenly that whole x-ray machine is just totally shattered. It's a murky landscape. You try to show someone where it hurts, and instead of a cast, you get a debate.
Wow. Yeah. A debate.
And that is the quiet damage of emotional invalidation. Welcome to today's deep dive, where we're unpacking a really profound blog post called Too Sensitive or Just Not Listened to.
Such a powerful piece.
It really is. Our mission today is to look at what physically and psychologically happens when you hear phrases like "you're overreacting" and how to untangle that knot it creates in your mind.
Because the emotional stakes here are just incredibly high. Opening up to someone, showing that softer underbelly, is inherently vulnerable.
Right, totally.
And when that vulnerability is met with a brick wall, it doesn't just sting in the moment. It actually conditions our nervous system.
Wait, really, like physically conditions it?
Yes. We are talking about literal neural pathways being reinforced to view your own internal world as a liability. The brain basically learns that sharing equals pain.
Ouch. So if you're listening right now and you've ever, swallowed your words because you didn't want to seem too sensitive, or maybe you typed out a massive text explaining your feelings only to delete the whole thing.
Oh, I've done that.
Right, and then you just reply, "I'm fine." If that's you, this deep dive is specifically for you.
We really need to look at the exact moment a feeling is dismissed to understand this. What happens in that split second is that a plea for connection gets twisted into a courtroom trial.
A courtroom trial, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, because you approach someone essentially saying, I am hurting, please see me. And the response shifts the dynamic into a space where you suddenly have to prove that your hurt is mathematically justified.
Okay, let's unpack this. It's the conversational equivalent of a closed door. We're talking about those really insidious triggers from the source material, like, it's not a big deal, or just let it go.
Or the ultimate gaslight, right?
Yeah.
Other people have it worse.
Yes. Oh, I hate that one. Going back to that physical injury idea, it's literally like going to a doctor with a broken arm. Instead of casting it, the doctor sits back and debates whether the arm deserves to be broken.
Right. Like, well, you only fell from a step stool, not a ladder, so...
So the bone shouldn't technically be snapped.
Exactly.
It turns a real, present experience of pain into this bizarre philosophical debate about whether you have the right to feel it.
And this raises an interesting question about the mechanics of human interaction. Like, why do people default to these dismissive phrases in the first place?
I mean, are they just being malicious?
Not usually, no. A lot of times, the person delivering those lines genuinely thinks they are helping.
Huh. Helping by dismissing it.
Right, because they might be uncomfortable with negative emotion themselves, so they try to rush you to the finish line of healing. They assume by saying, "it's not a big deal," they are actively shrinking the problem for you.
Oh, I see. They think they're being a cheerleader. Like, come on, brush it off. You've got this.
Exactly.
But intent doesn't erase impact. If I accidentally step on your foot because I'm rushing to open the door for you, your foot is still crushed.
Spot on. The biological reality of the person being dismissed is that their nervous system isn't receiving a cheerleading squad. It's receiving a threat signal.
A threat signal from a trusted person. That's harsh.
It is. When a trusted person dismisses your pain, your brain registers a rupture in social safety. The actual message that lands is simply, your inner experience is incorrect. You cannot trust your own senses.
So if outward expression becomes dangerous, the brain has to put that energy somewhere, right? It can't just evaporate. Where does it go?
It turns inward. We adapt. If your environment repeatedly signals that your reactions are disproportionate, you survive by turning against your own emotions.
Wow. You become your own most vicious critic.
Yes. You internalize the rejection.
You start asking yourself if you really are just broken. Like, am I so fundamentally bad at letting things go? Why is everyone else moving on and I'm still stuck here?
That spiral of profound self-doubt is where the real long-term damage takes root, according to the text. You begin questioning your own perception of reality.
Like, did they really say it that way? Or am I just looking for reasons to be upset?
Exactly. You feel this deep, heavy shame for still hurting long after the event. You look around, see everyone else seemingly fine, and you basically pathologize your own grief or anger.
It's the old hot stove conditioning. If every time you share a feeling you get burned by invalidation, you just stopped touching the stove.
Precisely. You preemptively bottle things up because your brain has already simulated the dismissal before you even open your mouth.
What's really fascinating here is a point the author makes about the isolation.
Yes, the original hurt is painful enough, but that quiet, chronic feeling of being alone with it, that actually cuts deepest.
Because it creates this lingering, heavy sense of being a burden?
Right. You start to view your very emotional existence as an inconvenience to the people around you.
And because you feel like a burden, you realize your usual circles just aren't safe for this kind of vulnerability. So you develop these covert, underground ways to process your pain.
You try to handle it without bothering anyone.
Exactly. But wait, let me play devil's advocate here for a second. Because, I mean, isn't independent emotional regulation just a normal adult skill?
Oh, for sure.
Like, isn't it healthier to sometimes just sit with your feelings alone and sort them out rather than broadcasting every grievance to your friends?
That is a vital distinction to make.
Yeah.
But the author identifies these not as healthy processing, but as trauma-informed quiet strategies.
Okay, so what's the difference?
Healthy processing is about moving through the emotion. It leads to resolution, a decrease in physiological arousal, and eventually peace. These quiet strategies, though, they don't lead to resolution. They lead to exhaustion. They are looping mechanisms designed to keep you safe from external judgment, not to heal the wound.
It's the difference between digesting a meal and just chewing the same piece of gum for 3 days. You're doing the motion, but you aren't extracting any nutrients.
That is a perfect analogy. Consider the habit of obsessively replaying situations in your head. You aren't just reflecting on what happened to understand it. You are literally putting yourself on trial.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you're playing the prosecutor and the defense, trying to legally decide if you were allowed to be hurt.
The classic phantom argument in the shower. You're marshaling evidence against a ghost version of the person who hurt you, just trying to secure a guilty verdict so you can finally feel justified in your own anger.
Yes. And the flip side of that active arguing is the passive masking.
Right, acting totally fine in public.
Exactly. You hold it together, performing fine perfectly, only to collapse into a black hole of overthinking the moment you shut your bedroom door. Or, like you mentioned earlier, you pour your soul into a massive text message.
Expending all that emotional energy.
And then you just delete it. The energy is burned, but the connection is never made.
It's like running a dozen heavy applications in the background on your phone. To everyone else, the screen looks completely normal, but the battery is draining at lightning speed because the processor is just maxed out internally.
Exactly.
And I really want to say this directly to you, listening right now. If you recognize yourself in that exhausted, battery-drained state, well, there's absolutely nothing wrong with you.
No, at all.
You aren't broken. You are just acting on the data you've meticulously gathered over time, and that data told you that your emotions are not safe to share, so you adapted.
That realization right there, that these are survival strategies, not character flaws, is the real turning point.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because once you see the mechanism, how do you dismantle it?
It requires a complete paradigm shift in how we define what an emotion actually is. And the author of our source post, Ileana Hustova, offers an incredibly practical perspective here.
Yes, and as a CEO and author, she is just so deeply immersed in human nature. You can really tell she approaches this from the messy reality of how humans interact, not just some sterile clinical distance.
Absolutely. Her work emphasizes that feeling hurt doesn't mean you are weak, and feeling hurt doesn't necessarily mean the other person is toxic.
Right, so what are they then?
Emotions are just raw biological data. Think of it like a light flashing on your car's dashboard. You don't judge the light.
Right, you don't call the check engine light overly dramatic.
Or tell it to just let it go. You check the engine. Emotions are the dashboard lights. They're simply indicating that a dynamic, a specific moment, or a personal boundary really mattered to you.
So if we treat them as data, we have to change the questions we ask when the light comes on, because asking, am I overreacting, is basically self-gaslighting.
It's a complete trap. It immediately puts you back on the witness stand defending your right to exist.
So what should we ask instead?
Well, am I overreacting? Keeps you locked in the amygdala, the fear and defense center of the brain. You are bracing for judgment. But when you ask, what is this feeling trying to protect or point to?
Oh, that shifts it.
Right, you are moving the brain's activity into the prefrontal cortex. You're looking for a root cause. You're analyzing the data. Anger is almost always protecting a boundary. Sadness is pointing to something you value that was lost.
You become an investigator of your own mind rather than a judge. I love that. Another great question the text swaps in is, what would I say if I truly believed my experience was valid?
That one bypasses the defense mechanisms entirely,
Mm-hmm.
because usually we are editing our feelings before we even acknowledge them to ourselves out of fear of the other person's reaction.
Yeah, we apply this politeness filter.
Exactly. But if you strip away that fear, if you assume as a baseline that you are 100% right to feel this way, what words actually come out?
It forces you to look at the raw data. And then there's the pivot to action. What kind of response would actually help this hurt soften even a little, which is just so gentle?
It is. It shifts you from being on trial to actually looking for a remedy. What Ilyana Hrustova's framework offers is permission.
Permission to take your inner experience seriously.
Yes. You have a right to your own reality,
Yeah.
regardless of whether the people around you validate it or not.
That internal permission is so empowering, but let's be realistic here. You can't just talk to yourself in a mirror forever. Healing usually requires exactly what was denied to you in the first place, right?
Yes, an external safe space to be heard. We are biologically wired to co-regulate. The wound happened in connection with another person, and the nervous system really needs connection to fully heal it.
But this is the missing piece for chronic victims of emotional invalidation. They know they need to talk, but the friction of normal interactions is just way too high.
They're terrified of being told to get over again.
Which is why finding a dedicated space built explicitly for this problem is so crucial. And the source actually highlights a solution for this. Ilyana Hrustova founded a platform called Unburdora for this exact reason.
It's such an important resource. It operates as a non-clinical, one-to-one conversation space.
The term non-clinical is doing a lot of heavy lifting there, right?
It's vital, because when you walk into a clinical setting, there's an inherent power dynamic. You are a patient, and there is a diagnostic lens being applied. Unburdora completely removes that friction.
So no diagnosing.
No diagnosing. And crucially, no arguing with your experience. You aren't a patient with a disorder. You are a human being carrying a heavy load. It is simply a calm, confidential place to unpack the baggage.
It's basically the ultimate antidote to the "you're overreacting" crowd, because in those sessions, you can just say exactly what happened and how much it landed without having to defensively tone it down.
Right. You don't have to caveat everything with, I know I'm probably being silly, but...
You just get to be upset.
Exactly. And because that defensive barrier can finally drop, you can explore the nuances safely. You can bring the part of you that is genuinely hurt, and you can also safely bring the part of you that is incredibly anxious about making a fuss.
Both parts are welcome.
Yes. You practice trusting your feelings at your own pace with a real person sitting across from you who remains present and never, ever tells you to get over it.
So what does this all mean for someone listening who is wondering if their problem is big enough for this? Like maybe they're thinking, well, I didn't go through a massive tragedy. My boss just keeps dismissing my ideas, or my partner says I'm too sensitive.
That is such a common fear. But the threshold for deserving to be heard is not a catastrophic event.
That's a huge relief.
You do not need a dramatic crisis to deserve this kind of attention. The text makes it clear. Simply wanting to talk about something that hurt you is entirely enough of a reason to be there.
Let that sink in. Just the fact that it hurts is enough. You don't need a doctor's note for your emotional pain.
It comes back to honoring the reality of your experience. The fundamental human need is to be witnessed without judgment.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the sharp sting of "you're overreacting" to the silent fallout where we start doubting our own memories.
The isolation of self-doubt is so heavy.
It really is. We explored how the brain adapts through exhausting quiet strategies, masking and ruminating just to survive.
Yeah.
And we looked at the empowerment of reframing emotions as biological data.
And finally, finding safe, friction-free spaces like Unburdora to untangle it all without having to mount a legal defense for your own heart. If there is one overarching truth to take away, it is this. Your emotional experience is valid simply because you are experiencing it. Full stop.
No caveats.
Exactly.
As you go about your day listening to this, I want to leave you with a slightly different angle to ponder, something that builds on the text but wasn't explicitly discussed.
I'm curious.
We've spent this entire deep dive looking at how others invalidate us and how we internalize it. But what if the way we respond to others' emotions is just a mirror of how we've been conditioned to treat our own?
Oh, wow. That's deep.
Right. If you ever find yourself rushing to tell a friend, hey, it's not a big deal, don't overreact, Ask yourself, what part of your own emotional history are you currently trying to silence?
We so frequently externalize our own inner
We
critics.
really do. Untangling this isn't just about finding safety for ourselves, it's about becoming a safe space for others too. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep trusting that internal data, keep treating your feelings as valid, and please keep seeking out those spaces where you are truly heard. We'll catch you on the next one.